Did AI hit an IQ of 180? Did anyone actually age at less than half the normal rate? Did we get autonomous robotaxis in a major European city? Did a game with fully AI-driven characters reach millions of players? And did any of this happen faster or slower than we expected? So 12 months ago, I tried to predict what would happen in 2025. Let's see what actually happened and what it tells us about the direction we're heading. One of our boldest predictions for 2025 was that someone would demonstrate an aging rate below 50% of normal. The clearest public signal comes from the Rejuvenation Olympics, which tracks biological aging using the Dunedin pace metric, where 1.0 is normal aging speed and lower means slower aging. And in 2025, something genuinely new appeared. On the public leaderboard, multiple participants showed measured aging rates well below 0.5, even as low as 0.38. Brian Johnson is the most visible example bringing attention to this space, but the signal is broader. This is no longer a single outlier. It's a pattern. Some results are early or based on limited measurements, so this doesn't mean aging is solved. But it does mean something fundamental has changed. Aging is now measurable, trackable, and increasingly responsive to intervention. The war on aging is definitely on now. We also made a second prediction about longevity, not biology, but visibility. I predicted that longevity would move into the mainstream, and that figures in the space would see rapid audience growth. I made a specific call that Brian Johnson would double his YouTube following. At the start of the year, he was at about 1.3 million subscribers. Today, he's at roughly 1.94 million. So I missed the exact number. Growth was about 50%, not 100. But the underlying signal is clear. Longevity has moved from a niche interest into a mainstream conversation, reaching millions and reshaping how people think about aging. And when belief shifts at that scale, attention follows, capital follows, and research accelerates. We're entering a period of longevity mania. And historically, that's how entire scientific fields break through. We predicted AI might reach an IQ of 180. On that number, we were wrong. But here's what did happen in 2025. Even earlier, systems like GPT-4 scored around 1,410 on the SAT, placing them in the top few percent of human test takers. And models like GPT-5.2 move far beyond that baseline. It can now handle end-to-end software builds, reason through complex scientific problems, draft legal and technical documents, and operate as a true co-pilot for real knowledge work. That's why IQ metrics missed the point. Intelligence didn't jump to a clean number, it spread across real tasks and became a tool that can amplify our skills and IQ. Now let's talk about generative AI. One of the predictions we made for 2025 was that we would see a fully AI-generated feature film, something close to a traditional 90-minute movie, released on a major streaming platform like Netflix. On that prediction, we were wrong. As of late 2025, there still hasn't been a widely recognized, fully AI-generated feature film released on a top-tier platform that achieved mainstream critical or commercial success. But what did happen this year is still significant, and in some ways, more revealing. Generative AI in video moved from short, unstable demos to coherent storytelling experiments. The tools themselves improved rapidly. Sora and Sora 2 expanded cinematic control and realism. Google's Veo 3 and 3.1 surprised many with better consistency and visual quality. And toward the end of the year, the Chinese model Kling came back very strong, especially in motion, pacing, and scene continuity. More importantly, creators began stitching scenes together, using AI not just to generate individual shots, but to assemble longer narratives that actually hold together. Let me show you a few examples. Avatar is a good place to start. It focuses on mood and atmosphere rather than realism, and it shows how AI can now sustain visual tone across multiple scenes. It's not perfect, but it's intentional, and that's new. A Time Traveler's Vlog takes a different approach. It leans into what AI is already good at: rapid world building, imaginative transitions, and stylistic freedom. Instead of trying to imitate traditional cinema, it almost creates a new format altogether. And the Steelers shows progress in narrative structure. The characters and environments aren't flawless, but they're coherent. And that level of continuity would have been extremely difficult just a year or two ago. We also saw AI-generated short films gaining recognition at festivals and at dedicated AI film competitions, while longer AI-generated projects were released on platforms like YouTube to demonstrate what's now possible. The key insight here is this: AI didn't replace filmmaking in 2025, it lowered the barrier to experimentation. Major studios are still using AI mostly as a tool for visual effects, de-aging, pre-production, and post-production acceleration. That's the cautious, institutional path. But at the edges, something else is happening. Small teams, and sometimes individuals, can now prototype visual stories that previously required entire studios. So while the first fully AI-generated Netflix blockbuster hasn't arrived yet, the direction is clear. Generative AI is turning film from a capital-intensive process into an increasingly iterative and experimental medium. 12 months ago, I made a very specific prediction about AI in games. I said we would not see a mainstream game using fully autonomous AI-driven NPCs in 2025. And on that, I was correct. While we've seen mods, indie games, and early implementations, no major game released this year handed full autonomy to its characters. But I also said something else, that in 2026 we would likely experience this. And this is where things get interesting. With the upcoming release of Grand Theft Auto 6, we may be approaching that transition. Rockstar isn't turning thousands of NPCs into fully independent AI agents, and that's important to say clearly. But everything we've seen so far points toward far more dynamic, adaptive, and persistent character behavior than in previous open-world games. NPCs with routines, NPCs that react to the world and to you, NPCs that feel less scripted and more alive. That's not full autonomy yet, but it's a meaningful step toward it. So the prediction wasn't that AI NPCs would suddenly take over games in 2025. It was that the transition would begin quietly at the edges and then surface in major titles shortly after. One of the major areas we promised to revisit is autonomous vehicles. And in 2025, we saw very concrete progress, even if full autonomy for everyone isn't here yet. On the deployment front, Waymo, Alphabet's autonomous vehicle division, now operates roughly 2,500 robotaxis in the United States, completing around 450,000 paid rides per week across cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Austin. A significant ramp from earlier years. Over the last 12 months, Waymo expanded its footprint further. It added service to 3 new cities in 2025, bringing its robotaxi network into places like Detroit, Las Vegas, and San Diego. Waymo also continues to grow its fleet and footprint with plans to add roughly 2,000 more vehicles by the end of 2026, roughly doubling its existing size. And there are some eye-grabbing milestones in terms of usage. So far in 2025, Waymo has logged roughly 100 million autonomous miles, up from about 50 million at the end of 2024, a doubling in autonomous operational experience that reflects real scalability in structured environments. It's not just the US where robotaxis are advancing. Chinese companies are also expanding rapidly. For example, WeRide's autonomous robotaxi and bus services launched or tested in cities like Guangzhou and Abu Dhabi in 2025. And Baidu's Apollo Go service hit millions of rides and announced plans to deploy in the UK and Germany by 2026. Meanwhile, Tesla made big headlines this year by testing robotaxis without safety drivers on public roads in Austin, moving toward a production-ready fleet for 2026. A notable jump even if the service is still early and small relative to Waymo's. Other players are entering too. Amazon-owned Zoox began operating robotaxis in multiple US cities, with public ride previews in Las Vegas, and companies like Mercedes and others are conducting Level 4 shuttle tests in cities like Abu Dhabi. The Middle East, particularly Dubai and the UAE, has also expanded autonomy pilots and partnerships this year, integrating autonomous services into broader mobility planning rather than just testing in limited zones. So what do these numbers tell us? It's not that autonomous cars are everywhere yet, but multiple real driverless services are operating without safety drivers, performing hundreds of thousands of paid rides weekly, and expanding into new cities and regions. The last 12 months weren't about a single global launch. They were about robotaxis going from experimental to operational, with data, usage, and tangible service expansion. That's the difference between technology that exists and technology that scales, and that's the real progress of 2025. So that's how 2025 actually unfolded, not perfectly, but directionally. Some predictions landed, some were early, and some revealed where progress really gets stuck. Not in technology, but in deployment, institutions, and incentives. I'll be back soon with a new set of predictions for 2026. Not as guesses, but as signals worth watching if you care about innovation, longevity, and where AI is really heading. And if this kind of analysis is useful to you, there's another video on this channel I think you'll enjoy, where we go deeper into how to read technological change without getting lost in hype. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.